Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, Principal Atmospheric Scientist at Nutrien Ag Solutions, and I want to thank you for watching this weekly Ag Weather Update brought to you by the Farm Credit Associations of North Carolina. Well, I'm going to rewind back a week and show you what temperature anomalies, those being differences from normal, look like here across the United States. Parts of the Midwest, getting over to the East Coast, saw much above average temperatures as we progressed toward and through Christmas and now here toward the beginning of the new year. But if you've lived in North Carolina, you've been on a little bit of a roller coaster ride with temperatures going back almost the entire month. So this graph shows us going back to the beginning of December 2019 up until yesterday, what our temperatures have looked like. So the blue bars represent the highs and lows each day. Record highs are up here and record lows are down there. And what we've noticed is that we continue to go on this kind of week-long, week to 10-day warm-up and then a drop-off. Warm-up and then a drop-off. Warm-up. And as you can imagine, we're going to see another drop-off that's coming here in the near term. This kind of roller coaster ride of temperatures is very common for this time of year, but we need to be looking at the timing to see when the next systems are passing through and what they're going to do to our temperatures and precipitation. Looking at precipitation first, over the last 7 days, we've had two systems to consider. System number one exited about a week ago right now, right down here. It really hammered parts of South Carolina, but brought some very heavy rainfall to the southern half of North Carolina. Who missed out on this one? Well, much of the northern half of North Carolina and Virginia. Now, the system that moved through over the weekend brought in very, very heavy rainfall into parts of the Mid-South, specifically right in through this part of the Tennessee Valley. Some locations in there seeing well in excess of 3 inches of rainfall. It also brought a lot of snow into the northern plains and some severe weather as well. And that's a system we're going to talk about at the beginning of this video because that's going to be the one that passes through us next. Now, before we get there, take a look at this figure, though. Over the last 14 days, we're looking at percent of normal rainfall. And we can see the effect of that system that moved through a week ago, really hammering the southern half of the state, bringing up rainfall totals there between 100 and 200% of normal, while missing the northern and eastern parts of North Carolina and all of Virginia. So the question is this big system that curled up in the midsection of the country producing blizzard conditions north, severe weather to south, and a whole lot of heavy rainfall out ahead of it? Is this one going to impact us too much here as it finally lifts on off to the north and east? Because this sucker was a monster, 1,500 miles across. And as it went through, by the way, dumped a lot of snow here. Now, I know we're talking about snow in the northern plains, and this is a video specifically for North Carolina, but you farmers in North Carolina need to be paying attention to this, and here's the reason why. That's widespread 6 to 12 inches of snow, and it fell on ground that before that snow got there already measured between a 2 and in some locations upwards of 6 inches of excess soil moisture. Now remember, this is in millimeters, so wherever you see the number 100, that's the 4-inch contour. So we've got frozen topsoil with 4 to 6 inches of excess water beneath that, and we just put on top of it about a foot of snow. So the problems here are going to last through spring, and I want you corn and soybean farmers in North Carolina to know that. Where else is it dry around the country? Texas, Louisiana, and the Pacific Northwest. If you just come over here, we can see that the northern and eastern part of North Carolina is dry, as is Virginia. Okay, is the current system going to be causing any major problems for the Carolinas? No, it's really going to be producing a lot of winter conditions here in the northern part of the U.S. It's just going to be bringing in some precip through North Carolina. The main show is actually still back here. You see, this is the trough we're dealing with today, but the big trough I want you to focus on is that one. So what's happening? Very wavy jet stream out in the Pacific. And what's happening is this deep trough in through here will be lifting middle and end of this week, and that will be the system that brings our next chance at getting quite a bit of precipitation, not only in the Mid-South and the Southeast, but eventually coming through the Carolinas toward the end of the week. After the rainfall today, you get a bit of a stretch of drier weather, but it is reloading and setting itself up to be very wet. Now, in this video, I want you to pay careful attention to what I talk about here over the Aleutian Islands, here between Greenland, Hudson Bay, and Iceland, and what that means for our temperature and precipitation patterns, okay? So here's your rapid recap. Looking out over the next week, this is total accumulated precipitation. The main show will be this system that's emerging middle and end of the week that races up toward Illinois, but because of a high-pressure cell that backs off over the southeast, we are pumping in the moisture into this system. And this area and through here, as it approaches the Appalachian Mountains, could be adding another 2 to 4 inches of rainfall. Remember, that was the same quarter that not only just saw the severe weather, but also saw the very heavy rain. What will we be getting right here in North Carolina? Well, take a look at this. This is, again, the next week's worth of precipitation, the majority of this coming toward the end of the week. I do notice this a lot with your weather. Right here where the Blue Ridge Mountains sit right in through here, we often notice that we get these stripes of precipitation that seem to kind of mirror the Blue Ridge Mountains. And there's certainly a lot of, I think, truth to that geographical effect. But in general, if we just kind of look at some of the numbers here, we're talking about picking up anywhere between half to 3/4 of an inch of rainfall pretty much across the whole state, with some locations locally picking up between 1.5 inches and 2 inches, especially as you get back over toward the Appalachian Mountains here. All right. Any snow coming in with this? Well, with the first system exiting, maybe some light snow here, but with the second system coming through, we'll talk about maybe another chance for some snow there on the border with Tennessee. All right. What about week 2? Well, week 1, our models are in lockstep. GFS, European, both saying the same thing. But as we get out to week 2, GFS is on the left and European is on the right. While they're both painting this corridor wet, you can see the GFS wants to keep the southeast on the drier side of things, whereas the European has a bit more of an expansive area here of near average to above average precipitation. Given the setup in the jet stream that I'm paying attention to, specifically something that's not even shown on these maps, it's way over in the Gulf of Alaska, I think we could actually see a bias towards some wetter conditions, not only in the near term, but in the long term as well. And here's what I'm talking about. Watch 3 areas with me. 1, here, 2, there, and 3 down here. Okay? Now, as this animation starts, this is looking down over the North Pole. So here's the trough that's causing all the problems in the north central part of the United States and the Northeast today. This is the trough that's going to sweep through at the end of the week, causing issue with giving us some heavy rainfall toward the end of the week. But keep an eye right here. Okay? Let's get those drawings off there and animate this one forward for you. Let's pause here. By the time we get into Thursday morning, a broad trough that actually has its roots clear up in Alaska is sweeping through the Four Corner states while a ridge builds here over the southeast. So even after this first system passes us today on Monday, temperatures drop off a little bit. They're going to go right back on the rebound as the flow of the atmosphere is doing this. All right? But with the trough sweeping through, it is drawing a lot of moisture out of the Gulf, such that by the end of the week and weekend, it's pulling it right over the Carolinas. So that's what gives us the rainfall that you saw on the map a few moments ago. Now, after this time period, let's call it January 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. That's what I just played for you here. Did you notice that overall there's quite a bit of troughing along the East Coast? That's our next dip in the roller coaster ride in terms of temperatures. And it's only about 3 to 4 days of near average to below average weather because that trough exits, this ridge builds. That's the one I wanted you to see. Digging the trough right back here into the west, and guess what? More ridging happening here over the southeast. Now watch what that does to our temperatures. Certainly over the next 5 days, we're going to be seeing above average temperatures. That's because the next trough that's coming out is here, and the first one lifted through the northeast, didn't dig into the southeast. So, after this trough finally makes its way here by the end of the week, we get to unlock some of the cooler weather in Alaska, and I do mean cold. I should say cold. They saw minus 60-degree temperatures in central Alaska last week. Well, that cold air will briefly push all the way through the southeast. Again, we're talking about the 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. But does it last? No. With the ridge resetting setting here and the trough there, we get that same old familiar southeast ridge. You saw it almost all of 2019. And that brings in the above average temperatures once again as we get out into the middle of the month of January. Okay, now some details. As I play this one forward, let's pause it right here. We're going to see early this morning a line of showers and possibly some storms moving from west to east right across the state. It's not much. We're not adding much precipitation with this one. These storms did have a history of being severe yesterday and the day before, but not the case as they come through the Carolinas. Now, by this afternoon and this evening, that's out of the way. The bigger low curls up over the Great Lakes, but doesn't really give us much other than, a cooler shot at air coming through. Now, by the time I get into Tuesday evening, maybe some light snow in the Appalachian Mountains. But the next system, if you turn your attention, please, over to the Baja of California, see that down there, southwestern corner of this map? That circulation is the beginning of the next system I want to watch. Now, there's high pressure that builds in after system number 1 leaves and gives us a nice, drier week ahead. But it's where that high pressure cell goes that I need you to pay attention to. So this is now Wednesday morning. High pressure cell sitting over Alabama. It slowly moves off the Florida coast and now sits right here. You see, with it moving in this direction, yep, you get through much of your week dry, but it's just pumping the moisture around it right back into Louisiana. And on these strong southerly winds, we're going to be filling the lower atmosphere with moisture. This is Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. By the time we get into Friday morning, I'm expecting to see some widespread rain covering the western half of the state, spreading through on Friday into Saturday morning. Locally heavy rainfall amounts like we saw, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall. And when is it coming? Friday afternoon through Saturday morning. Now that system moves out, and behind it enough cold air comes in to possibly bring in some snow to the Appalachian Mountains here. All right. But as we know, we bring in the cooler weather for a few days, the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th. All right. But it'll be reloading, the whole atmosphere will be, in the Gulf of Alaska after this, setting us up for a very active pattern after January 7th, after the cold weather ends. So over the next 15 days, where's the heaviest corridor of rainfall? Well, it's in through here. Next system soaks that area. But we're going to be seeing near average to above average precipitation throughout much of North Carolina with this next system coming through. With, you can see here the model trying to paint the coast a little drier, but overall we'll still see precip across the state. But look at this. This is now valid January 10th through February 10th. And the atmosphere, because the Indian Ocean dipole collapsed, and what you're going to see in a few moments with the MJO taking over, is going to give us split flow in the jet stream. Polar branch there, subtropical branch there, and it all comes together right into this area. We are looking at the potential for having a very wet January, especially in parts of the Mid-South and in the Tennessee Valley, but that extends over into the Mid-Atlantic and into the Carolinas. So we could be under the gun for a very wet month of January after this next couple of systems kind of pull through. Okay, with that, what I want to do to get to the last part of this video is I want to take a look at some features that are dominating the tropics. I'm going to give you an international update here, okay, because there's some very important stuff to be discussing. The Madden-Julian Oscillation. Let me just remind you what you want to watch for. Phases 7, 8, 1, 2. Those are cold phases for the Carolinas. Phase 3, 4, 5, 6. Those are warm and wet phases. The MJO came out here into phase 6, moved over to phase 7 today, but is forecast to fall inside this envelope right in through here over the coming days. That means it's going to run out here into phases 4 and 5. And phases 4 and 5 tend to support ridging along the East Coast. And that's why you saw with the deep trough off of the Gulf of Alaska, with the deep ridge off of the Gulf of Alaska, the troughing in the West Coast, well, more ridging over us, which is why the temperatures continue to rebound. Why are we not getting any sustained cold? Well, part of it is because of this. The Arctic oscillation stays positive. The North Atlantic oscillation stays positive. Now, what does that mean? That means all the cold air stays up over Greenland, the Hudson Bay, over the Arctic, and over Alaska. It's going to be hard to pull that cold air in a sustained fashion over the eastern half of the United States. We do have that cold shot coming through, but it just doesn't last very long, especially as the MJO goes over to phase 4 and 5. So this is what I mean. The cold air is staying here, warming up here, warming up here, and warming up there. See how it pivots around that? There's the ridge that we're going to be getting after January 10th, rebounding our temperatures. Dominant features, though, this ridge and that ridge. Now, I want to talk with you about what's going on over here in Europe, because this is a big deal when it comes to wheat. Now, this map over here on the left shows you the snow cover in this color across the Northern Hemisphere. And this, what I'm coloring in here, is the Black Sea. Notice Ukraine, which is here, Turkey, which is there, and the southern half of the Russian wheat belt right now doesn't have any snow. Over the next 15 days, look at the map on the right. Black Sea is in through here. we're going to be seeing much above average temperatures in through this corridor. Now, why is this critical? Well, with the winter wheat that is planted in this area, we need to get major snow cover sitting on top of it this time of year so that when the cold air comes in January and February, when it eventually gets here, it doesn't kill the wheat. But you got to have the snowfall. And right now, that area is snow-free. So this is something to be watching, could move markets on a broader scale. Here's the next thing I want you to be watching internationally. We've had a collapse of the Indian Ocean dipole. It's now no longer the dominant signal. What takes over is the MJO. And right now, I want you to see this. You see, currently, sitting over South America, there's good upper level support for rains. But with the MJO bringing in this suppression of vertical motion with time, you end up getting this. Wet in the near term in Brazil's eastern growing regions and right here over Mato Grosso. Now, why is this important for Mato Grosso? They're already harvesting the earliest planted soybeans, which means they're trying desperately to get in safrinha cotton and safrinha corn. But in southern Brazil, where they grow a full season corn and a full season soybean, things are looking very, very dry in the near term. That would be Mato Grosso do Sul, Paraná, and Rio Grande do Sul. This is Paraguay. And that particular region, over the next several days, is expected to be much above average with temperatures. We're talking temperatures here that are in the upper 90s and lower 100s. So very hot and very dry in southern Brazil, impacting both corn and soybeans. Argentina, meanwhile, having decent precipitation. The last story I want to give you that's international, while you're watching it over there on the left, that was this morning, where the sun rose here over southeastern Australia, in Victoria and New South Wales. The fires once again erupted here. And the problem has been this area has been under extreme duress when it comes to precipitation. Very, very, very dry. And the front that you see actually coming in at the end of this, see how the cloud cover over there on the left is kind of moving in? It's not going to come in with enough precipitation to really help these fires out and the firefighters who are fighting them. Yeah, there was quite a bit of lightning with it, but you see the lightning over here? That's actually all from what are called pyrocumulus, clouds that form on top of the heat of the smoke, and they can make a lot of volcanic lightning. Temperatures today, already triple digits. Look at this. And this is how much rainfall they're expecting through the end of the week. Where were those fires? Right down here. So the situation in Australia, I just want to keep you up to date on it, is pretty rough. We'll go and wrap things up right there. Hope you all have a great week and a great start to 2020. We'll talk to you again in the new year. Thank you.